Hard, heavy, and hair. Badass music for badass listeners. With Pariah Burke.
I'm Pariah Burke. I'm the host of the Hard, Heavy, and Hair show, and I'm here with my good friend Brandon Cook. Brandon is the guitarist extraordinaire for Black and Blue, The Loyal Order, tribute bands, and a bunch of other projects we're going to talk about. And we are here in Casa de Cook.
That's right. My home. Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you coming over.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
So when we first met, you said to me that everything you do is about music and that you're very fortunate in that respect. Mm-hmm. I know that to be true. I know that everything he does happens to be about music. Mm-hmm. And let me address the camera here, folks. This is one of the nicest, most gracious, most appreciative people in rock and roll today. Now, he's a great human being and a dad too, but I know you're not here to find out about that. You want to find out about Brandon Cook, the musician. Brandon Cook of Black and Blue, of the Loyal Order. About the rock star. Is it okay if I call you a rock star?
Sure.
All right.
Somebody has to.
So I was thinking about the name of the band, The Loyal Order.
Yeah.
Some musicians change bands like they change underwear. If they wear any underwear. So
yeah.
I guess
I'm going commando currently, so.
Oh, right on. There you go, ladies. So, but you tend to stick with projects. Mm-hmm. You know, you've been with different projects for a long time. And how long ago did you and Jeff actually start working? Jeff Buhner, his co-writing partner on Loyal Order.
We started moving into working on the Loyal Order at the end of 2011. You know, we started. I got a call from Jeff wanting to work with our very amazing singer friend Delana, and we started kind of pitching around with songwriting ideas with each other, and we worked with Delana at the beginning of 2012, and then we eventually had a bunch of summer shows with her where we did Cadott, Wisconsin's Rock Fest, and a couple other dates in the Midwest. And then right around the time that, you know, the end of that year was rolling around, we got home from Cadott, and this guy called us about doing songs, writing a song for a TV show. So the middle of 2012, okay. Right when we got back, mid-July, Jeff calls me. He's like, dude, do you want to write a song for a TV show? And I was like, fuck yes, absolutely. It was a hunting show. And, you know, we got involved.
Something local to Portland?
Yeah, the guy, our friend Jeff Coxon, he had a show called Heavy Hitters Outdoors. And he wanted to make a show that was very rock and roll orientated, because most of the stuff that was out was very country music orientated, more rock and roll orientated. So he comes over and we sit in my apartment, and he's showing us all these songs about what he wants to do. And I started getting a riff like immediately. I was just like, okay, I got this. I understand what you want now. And Jeff started thinking lyrical ideas, and, you know, he kind of started, he and I have always had this really fast connection. You know, we've always been able to just, he's got an idea, and I go, well, what about this? And he goes, oh yeah. And we really riff off each other really well like that. So one day he calls me up and he's like, hey, let's finish that song today. You know, I know you got that riff. Do you want to write the rest of it today? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he was about 20 minutes behind schedule getting over here. And by the time he got here, I had the song mostly completed musically. And he goes, wow, you wrote that since I called you? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what happened. It just came out. I got into this mode where I was like, I got to get this done. You know, I don't have a lot of time. I got to teach later, And it just came out, and that was what became Off the Grid, Superhuman. That's one of our tunes. And our first final mix was finished the end of the world, 12/21, 21 or 12. You know, the end of the
Mayan calendar.
The Mayan calendar, the very end. That was the day we finished our final. We played that.
Were you sitting around waiting for the world to end?
Pretty much. I mean, it was just like, that's when we had time. So we finished it that day, and we went out that night. We took it to Dante's and asked Stevie, the old sound guy there, to play it over the monitors. people in that place lost their shit. We were like, oh, okay, so something's going on here. And then our friends from American Bastard, they were like, we want to hear that again. So we took it out to the car and we listened to them. And American Bastard was like really, really good songwriters and great, good band. And they were just like, holy shit, man, we really got to raise our game. And we're like, what do you mean? This is amazing, and just kind of really, we got a really fast response from it. And from those moments in the very beginning, we started writing with the intent that this would be like a world-class level project, and the way Jeff and I have continued to work, it's just like, oh, I'll bring in this idea, and if it's not like at that place where we're going like, this is Metallica level, or this is Ozzy Osbourne level or whatever, that Maiden epic iconic kind of riffs, that make you want to sing them again, or like it doesn't have like a hook, we're just like, it's not really hooking me, like I want to hear it again. So we just set it aside. And then we work on stuff until we can't forget it. That's basically how we approach songwriting. We work on it until we can't forget it. And we always listen to like the guys we really respect. I mean, like I've watched classic songwriting documentaries like about David Bowie and like U2, and Bowie's not really one of my biggest influences, but I know he's like an iconic great writer, so I just went with it. And he used to bring in a cassette tape, and he wouldn't record anything that his band didn't remember the next day or something like that. It was like either the next day,
I didn't know
but
that
the band would just go, we love that song, and they would just spin on it, and the next, they'd be singing the song or whatever, and he'd go, that's a hook, I'm gonna record that one. And so I've always kind of taken that approach. If it doesn't keep going in my brain, or if it bores me or it's just annoying or something, I'm just like, I don't want to hear that again. And Jeff is the same way. He's like, it can be frustrating because we're like, my riff's cool. I like it. Well, it's not spite. It's not striking me like I want to hear that again. And, I mean, that can be frustrating for either of us. However, we both kind of listen to each other, and we always take it to our producer, Rob Dacre, who has really helped take the project to just that world-class level. And so the chemistry between he and I was always like really, really on fire. Just we always knew that each other had good ideas, but we needed to tweak them a little bit, or like to really get, because it'd be like, oh, I have this idea, let's work on it. And knowing that the other person is kind of like not 100% sure if that's the final place of it. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of leave it in an almost nebulous mode until we show it to our producer, Rob Dacre, who goes, what about this? And we go, what about that? No, I really like that. Why do you really like it? I don't know. Can you try it this way? Sure. And then keep trying stuff. We really want to make sure that like even our own thoughts are confirmed. If something we really like just doesn't work, it doesn't work. When you hear it back, or when you hear someone else play it to you, you're like, ooh, you're right, that doesn't really work very well. That does work better. So, we try to keep the process like moving instead of like fixed in our, integrity. We have to have it exactly as the original thought I made. Anyway.
Can I jump in here?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot there I want to reference and unpack. Mm-hmm. But Half-Life, exactly what you were talking about. So you sent me some tracks that you've been working on, some that are, I would say, maybe ready for publication. Yeah. Some that weren't. I listened to Half-Life. Uh-huh. Okay, so Half-Life, a lot of your early mixes I love. Uh-huh. And all of the final work too. But So Half-Life was from 2018, this version you sent me. And if you had sent me the 2018 version, I'd have played it on Hard, Heavy, and Hair. Yeah. I really would. I like this track.
Cool.
But then
I love that track too.
Well, cool. All right. But then you recorded a whole new version of it, or you finalized a version the beginning of October. Uh-huh. So
did I send you that one?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I listened a couple of times. I mean, I've just been listening to Loyal Order and a couple of other projects that we'll get to later.
Okay.
But yeah, I listened to both those tracks back to back and noted a lot of the differences. And like I said, I'd have played the 2018 version.
Yeah.
But the new version is so much better.
Yeah, there was something about the guitar solo that I didn't like in the 2018 version. It was like, yeah, due to creative minds, doing whatever. It's like I didn't get a rehearsal track when I did the solo, and it's sometimes it's like didn't quite have enough time to prepare because you didn't get the rehearsal track, and you're going, fuck, I'll just go in and improvise. I'll be able to do this. Mm-hmm. So you try to improvise and it just doesn't come out. And so I went home and worked on it, and the particular solo section that it's in E minor, but for some reason playing an E minor scale on it doesn't really work. I don't know why, it just doesn't. Just playing straight E minor. For all you music theory nerds, it's a really plain kind of sounding thing, but like playing that plain normal sounding note selections, it wasn't cutting the mustard at all. It didn't make any melodic sense, and I'm just like, what is wrong with this section? So I went home and messed with it for a really long time. I got a rehearsal track and I started messing with it and started playing with it, and finally I just said, you know what, it kind of works in this key, kind of works in that key at times, so I'm just gonna completely wash all of everything and fuck with it until it's amazing. And I came up with this solo that I didn't think it was going to be in that form ever. And then I had been playing a Slayer tribute for a minute there, and I got kind of reckless with my guitar playing for a minute because playing Slayer is very reckless. So when I got into the studio to do this solo, it was right at the same time that I was doing some Slayer stuff, and it just, oh my God, this sounds so great. I was playing notes that weren't necessarily in key. I was bending notes from weird places to in key. I was really messing with it in a way that I wouldn't normally do with a straight E minor kind of sound. And it turned out so much better that we all looked at each other and we were like, that's a solo. Done. Let's mix it,
Be cool if we play it?
Yeah.
One?
I'll make sure that I get you the final version if it's not the one.
So have a listen. This is the guitar solo part from Half-Life by the Loyal Order. We just heard Brandon Cook's guitar solo on the song Half-Life from the Loyal Order. He won't let me play the old version because he really hates it. But I got to tell you, I liked the old version of the song. I liked the 2018 rough mix. But that guitar solo on the
2019.
Okay. That guitar solo on the 2019 version, that just kicks ass.
Thanks, man. Glad you dig it.
Thank you. And you mentioned also earlier about how you and the rest of the band, you like getting a song is good if it gets parts of it caught in your head, if you're singing it.
Yeah.
You know what I've been singing for the last couple of days that just keeps going around in my head? Fuck or Fight.
All right.
Tell me about that song.
Okay, Fuck or Fight. Well, that is a song that was written by Rob Daker. And it's about, like, the song itself is about the toxic spiral of a relationship that it's like, I'm not sure. I mean, most people have pretty healthy relationships and stuff like that. But as I'm sure many of you know, us rock and roll guys somehow get trapped into toxic relationships, whether it's us or our partner doing some toxic thing. Somehow it sort of turns into this toxic washing machine of just bullshit and past traumas and childhood experiences. And there's one particular type of like relationship that's just like, you can't, if you're not fighting, you're fucking. And it's a really ugly cycle. And that this particular song does a pretty good job at sort of explaining that, and not really graphically, but just like in prose, explaining how that goes. It just keeps going around in this washing machine of toxic soap, and rinse, repeat, fuck or fight. And actually, like when we go live, I use this Beatles tune, try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I'm right or I'm wrong. Then we go to the life is very short and there's no time. And then Jeff comes in screaming, for fucking and fighting, my friend. Nice. And I was like, that was one of my intro ideas for the tune. Because it's just like, I've had many of those kind of relationships in my past, and I don't like them. And I've done extensive like emotional work to look at why I'm in it and what my role in it is. And, it's hard for me to listen to that song sometimes because it hits so close to home. It's like, I was just in that. I don't even want to talk about it. So I had to do something for me to lighten it up a little bit and kind of like take away some of that, that reality of that song, and, I wish all the people that have been in, bad relationships well, and I want them to have healing, and I want me to have healing, and eventually, if I met those people down the road and we all have a good amount of healing, it would be nice to reconnect with them. But, at this time, it's not really ready. So, anyway, like that song itself, like, it was hard for me to do. It was really hard for me to step into it. And, like with everything about that song, I was trying to take it to another level, for the kind of things I wrote for my own parts in it. It didn't really take all that long, but we got some really good stuff out of it, and everybody seems to dig it. And I think probably just because so many people, in our really severely over-traumatized world, everybody can relate to that song in some way. It's like, how many people I know that I don't really know that many people. Like I'm learning as I get closer to doing it. I just found out that you don't love me. I just found out that you don't care. But another's gone next to the others. Come on, go fight, baby. I'm not scared. I've been through all of this before.
Okay, this is Low Order, Fuck or Fight.
I'm all done and I just don't care.
So I think now that you know what song we're talking about, the toxic relationships, the fuck or fight idea, I think you said a lot of rock and roll people deal with that. But I think anybody, lots of people deal with that. But I think it's especially creative people.
Yeah.
I mean, my listeners know I don't have the greatest luck with relationships or paternity suits or any of that stuff. But that's a whole other topic. But yeah, I think it's creative people. I think maybe creative people, and let me ask you, do you think it's because creative people just wear their hearts on their sleeves? There's a lot less jadedness. There's a lot fewer walls and protections that creative people build up, because to be creative, you have to be open. You have to feel everything. Yeah. No great writer was ever happy.
Yeah.
No great musician never felt tragedy and pain. Yeah. Do you think that's why creative people tend to wind up in more toxic situations than non-creatives?
That's a good question. I'm still learning a lot about it myself, and I would never call myself an expert in this situation, though I've done a lot of study. I've been in like emotional therapy since 2011, because I've been really trying to like get a whole handle on this and learn. And even if my personality as sort of empathic and creative or whatever has been, that's just what I've been given. Learning to cope with that in a normal world, a very intensely stimulating world, it can be really harsh, and like, I know I had my own history of abuse at times in my past, but I think a lot of what my ex-partners had to deal with was very severe abuse, like severe, really, really bad, like emotional abuse, spiritual abuse in some cases, and other times like, to the point of like complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So like from just like violent abuse, sexual assault, all kinds of stuff like that. And so those things come into my, I was taught by normal people, that, oh, you have to be good to people, if they're hurt, you can help them, and it's like something about me made me go, oh, of course I can help them, and so you bring them into your life and you're this creative person can think of a solution to that idea, that problem. Creative person can think of another solution very easily. We'll try it. And the next thing you know, you're completely overwhelmed by this person's problems. And you are open. You're open and you feel what they're feeling. As an empath, what someone who has post-traumatic stress disorder is going through, they're hurt and they need some sort of like guidance that they didn't get from whoever, maybe a parent or, like the lies that were forced upon them, in their assault situations, even societal, like going to court when you're dealing with an assault situation, like they don't believe you, or, the opposition creates this, this other story.
Yeah.
That an assault victim has to deal with. So then with all that sort of assault on this person who's been really assaulted, they bring that to a relationship with somebody who's nice to them, and it's the same thing. So anything makes them feel like a victim, like
they've been victimized, and then the story getting changed, they're re-victimized. Yeah. And they're carrying all that. Yeah.
So like really getting myself out of that story, like sort of rewriting my story is like, I'm going to have a healthy relationship. And because I did emotional therapy and stuff like that, I did a lot of looking at my own self, my own behaviors, whether they were healthy or non-healthy, really just going, okay, well, this happened. This is the story that I remember. What do you think of this? And I need you to be absolutely 100% direct with me about what you think. And my counselors were direct with me. Like sometimes it felt brutal, even though they were like as loving as you can be. It's like, oh man, I really did that. Or, oh, I didn't do that. Why did I think I did that? Well, because you got gaslit. Gaslighting's a thing. And, for creative people to deal with that, I mean, it's like part of the reason that we are creative that way is because creativity is, you've had to become creative. You can be born with creativity, that's for sure. But you've had to become creative to deal with these people in your life that are overwhelming and hurtful. So like, you had, let's see, like the creativity part of who I am is partly because of that. I used my guitar as a way to cope. So I kept playing and playing and playing and playing. And now I have like this overwhelming resource of guitar playing because that was how I tried to cope with the pain of living. So if that's the way you cope with pain of living, writing things and being creative, next thing you know, now your skill set is like, fruitful. So I'm grateful for, those things in a certain way. But, doing the therapy and stuff like that really helped me like make it mobile, make it successful, because you can sit and mire in your own toxicity for a long period of time and not get anywhere. And then once I like, the therapy for me was the drive gear. It was my clutch to get into first, into second, into third. And
for you younger people, he's talking about a manual transmission car.
That's right. Yeah.
Where you actually had to shift gears. The car didn't do it for you.
Yeah. For the few truckers out there, I understand the double clutch. I'd never driven one. Anyway. But yeah, it did give me that. And also, like it's more like an automatic transmission. I deal with these emotional things much better because of the things I've done. So like if I can sense someone who has that sort of like, and not to say that I don't have empathy for someone with post-traumatic stress disorder or like, some sort of narcissism or something like that. And I understand that they've been through a lot of pain to get there, whatever their situation. And now it's more like an automatic transmission. It's like it's gotten to the point where I just go, oh, that's what that is. Moving on.
You're maintaining healthy boundaries.
Yeah. The boundaries, like, like the, there are some. I want to actually retort what you said. There are some great writers that have healthy boundaries and happy lives and wonderful. John Lennon was able to sort of create that. I know he had his problems and he spent his time in Hollywood when, he was cheating on Yoko Ono and stuff like that because she kicked him out. But she kicked him out. She was like, I'm an artist and you're a dick, so get out. And he was like, okay. He had to like grovel and beg to get back in with her and all that stuff. And, that's how you create that stuff. Like Paul McCartney, one of the most creative people of all time, was with Linda McCartney every day for 30 years. And they had a wonderful creative relationship together, doing a whole band together. They were in a band together, and they didn't do Lindsey Buckingham and what's her name, they didn't do that whole thing where they were fucking everybody in the band.
And then making each other sing about how they were screwing each other over.
Exactly. Yeah. You screwed me over. No, you screwed me. No, you sing my song about it. No, yeah, right. Yeah. And Mick Fleetwood's back there just going, I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting laid. Anyway, anyway, and I just, I've utilized those lessons and, working with more healthy people and creating like more mobility in my life. And people say that, I've heard that people say that I'm a very nice person. I want to recant that. I mean, like, I'm not always nice. I really have I'm good at, I have a really great public face, like I really have worked on my public face and I really have worked on like socially interacting better, and that has, as I get better at that, I mean, that's actually attracted a different type of potential partner for me that like, and I'm, not
are in you, those. Are you saying you're not getting girls when you're on stage?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. But I have actually been attracting more women that don't see me in concert.
That's helpful, I bet.
You know, and it's a different kind of like, it's a different dynamic, you know, when I can walk into like a grocery store and meet somebody, or like, you know, meet a friend of someone who works in the music business who's never seen me play. And whereas like before, it was like usually people who had seen me play or seen me in where I'm at my best, and all of a sudden they're tapping me on the shoulder like, hey, you're so and so and you're from this thing, and and like, and you know, I guess I was always able to create that sort of like mystique or something that made people feel that way about me. But now it's more like it's a different kind of dynamic, you know, that I'm meeting someone and they're just like, oh, wow, you really add value to my life, and you're really a happy person. I like that happy person that I know and I see. You know, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but it doesn't work out because we have differing goals rather than like, it's just not working out. You know, the craziness that ensues when you have that kind of relationship. And like I said, this has given me a different kind of like creativity too. I can work with more people because that creativity, that swell that I had from sort of using my guitar as being a creative vehicle has allowed me to like meet people that want to write, and so I can work with them on a very healthy level. And like, you know, in the old days, like when you're in a band and you're fighting with it, I gotta get my idea, and it's one-upmanship and all that stuff. A big inspiration to me for all that was actually like Metallica, because they had that same kind of relationship in the band. Like Lars and James hated each other, and like James was such a domineering individual, and Lars was really manipulative and stuff like that, and they had to learn how to not be those things. Kirk Hammett was sort of like the victim, and he was just like, you guys never use my riffs or whatever. But dude, like, your riff is Enter Sandman riff. That's the most famous Metallica song of all time. Whoa, you never play my, you know, like, now they're not doing that. When I watched that Some Kind of Monster thing, everyone's like, oh, those guys are a bunch of victims, man, you know, and judging them. And I was like, no, that's how you do it. And it inspired me to get into my own therapy and learn how to, you know, I guess if you could really characterize me, I kind of had that Kirk Hammett kind of thing going on, where I felt victimized by the domineering people around me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I guess there was times I could be domineering too, but, you know, learning how to not be in that drama circle was really huge for me. And like, now that I can create with different people in a different way, you know, assert my ideas without like dominating or like feeling like they didn't like them. It's like, I just have like, oh, this idea of this project and this project and this project, and hey, you want to write a song? Like, yeah. And then we get it done. You know, it gets done and gets to fruition. In the last 5 years, I've been working on about 6 or 7 projects. Not all are getting released, but like, you know, I've written a bunch of songs of my own. You know, me and Jeff are getting more stuff done with the Loyal Order. You know, and he and I always just had like a really like off the hook, you know, chemistry for writing. So, but we're actually like getting more done, you know, so I can say like that's improved our relationship that was already really good.
I'm happy that you're getting healthy and you're getting healthier relationships.
Oh yeah.
I want to make sure that I say that.
Oh,
but yes,
you,
I want to talk about invasive species.
Yeah. The healthy relationships, before I go on, is like, that's been such a breath of fresh air. And like, I had a huge, you know, sort of revelation at the beginning of this year with myself. And I discovered that like there was this, you know, my parents were broken up when I was like really young, and I was a latchkey kid from the time I was 6.5, 7 years old. Our babysitter was like, she was a really just demented older woman, and they were very racist and like kind of abusive, and one of them spanked me and my brother, and my mom was like, well, me and your dad are divorced, but your dad's over there and I'm over here, so you guys got to come home and do yourself. So there was a massive amount of pressure on me when I was a really young kid. And because I was in the gifted and talented program, my mom had a very high expectation of me. And that dynamic of being by myself and having to have a high level of achievement expected of my teachers and my family and everybody, and then no one to enforce it except me, I developed this really high level of anxiety based around performance. And my EMDR specialist, like,
what's EMDR?
I can't remember the exact acronym, but it's eye movement, D is desensitization, and I think it's restoration.
Okay.
And it's a therapy for trauma, and it also works with anxiety and little neurotic things that we do, and it sort of like removes those little anxieties, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're just like blossoming in those places that you couldn't before. So with like certain types of performance, and where I would think that someone has a high expectation of me, I couldn't perform very well. Usually it's in like a social situation with someone who's very like they're not really, I don't view them as a peer. I view them as like a hero or something. And this year I had like a really huge breakthrough with that. And I used to not be able to walk up to people I viewed as heroes and see them as peers. And now it's been a different story with that. So like my story has literally physically, mentally, and emotionally changed because of this EMDR thing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild situation. And I mean, like, it directly helped my situation with writing Invasive Species. Like, it was like within days of that, it like, I went a couple of times this year and worked on stuff, and we just got so much creative stuff. And like, I had this like 2.5 weeks in LA where I met probably like 15 really big heroes of mine, and I had like a really good interaction with them, and created some peer level interaction. And I'm a 44-year-old guy, I'm not like a 18-year-old kid, but for a long time, those people I viewed as peers, because I was viewing them that way, they kind of treated me like a young kid. It was a really strange dynamic. But as soon as I like made that breakthrough, all of a sudden it was just like a different kind of respect. And a different kind of respect for myself too, because that inhibition wasn't there anymore. The Invasive Species project, my friend Paul and I, Paul Lamb.
Okay.
Paul Lamb is he's actually a Grammy nominated. He's part of a Grammy nominated team that made one of Kitaro's recent records.
Oh, wow.
The new age artist Kitaro.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
And he's been in progressive rock world for quite a long time, and he's made some really great stuff. And he made my very first demo. I made a 5-song demo with him in 2001. And it was very progressive, like 6, 7, 8 minute songs and instrumental stuff. And, I wasn't very experienced at the time, so it didn't turn out amazing, but I can give you some tracks if you want to play them.
Yeah, please.
It's the early State of Balance stuff. And, as I progressed with my State of Balance music, it kept getting me into bigger and better projects that paid more. And, maintaining State of Balance was like, it was impossible because I just was getting too busy, and then I had a child and stuff like that. But later on, Paul contacted me in 2013 and asked me if I wanted to work on this project with him, where we would get together and just improvise, and then he would extract parts that we improvised and create arrangements around them, and then we'd layer on top of them.
Okay.
And that's Invasive Species. He had this sort of Wall-esque, The Wall, like Pink Floyd's The Wall, or Animals kind of idea about like creating a concept about modern politics, and he has a very skeptical view of it. He's more along the lines of Republicans and Democrats are two wings of the same bird, and is more critical of all forms of manipulation in the political world than he would be to like taking one side or the other. Like all the social views that they use to make us oppose each other, those are called wedge issues for a reason, people. Wedge issues, that means drive you apart. They take the hammer and put the wedge in.
You ever read the book Quick, Don't Think of an Elephant?
Shit, you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. It's the political idea of they use buzzwords to get you thinking of certain things.
And that is exactly what this is about. I mean, like, it's about similar things like that. It's about how, like how Animal Farm has become a reality in a lot of ways. I mean, we don't live in a communistic world, but there's the pigs that control everything, and there's the dogs that are the people that make all the money, and then there's the rest of us. What do they call those? Sheep.
Yeah.
And we all just sort of like, there's this meme of a bunch of sheep going, and they've always went through this thing where there's this fence area, but there's no fencing on the outside of it, and all the sheep go through the same place because the farmers always directed them there. So when the fence is gone, they don't go anywhere else except through the fence.
Yeah. Conditioned behavior.
Yeah, conditioned behavior, exactly. And so we've this concept record, which is not done. I think we need some funding to back it, because it's large. It's a large idea, and all the tunes are very long. One of the songs that we did was called Law and Ellipsis, but one of the lyrics is
provocative.
Law and Order. It describes this sort of dystopian view that is actually very close to our current reality. And like, we have a pretty good life here in America. We have wonderful things, that we have all kinds of the most advanced technology in the world. We have clean food and water, mostly.
Not if you're in Flint, Michigan.
Not if you're in Flint, Michigan, yeah. And then somehow one side or the other gets to make those people bad for asking for cleaner water in America. How can you, oh, well, the Democrats did that. No, dude, no, we're just saying we need clean water. Don't fucking argue about this. But then they make a wedge issue out of Flint, Michigan. Well, if black people would clean up their communities, and that's the next day. It's like, well, black people, they kill more people in America than anybody. They're the highest murder rate of their own people. And it's like, well, dude, that doesn't clean up the water. Let's talk about the water. And then the next day it's, some rich guy dies, and, they mourn it on the news for a week.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, you can mourn him one day, but what about the water? What about, the Native Americans that are having their land stolen? Oh, they're just making a big deal out of nothing. Well, they're not getting money for use of their land. Well, look, they're killing them. But so what are we doing about this? How long do these problems have to go on? And Invasive Species sort of like investigates that a little bit, and I was drawn into the project because of the scope, and I got to sing on the project. I heard the lyrics and I was just like, wow, man, that's really insane. And I had some ideas for like how the lyrics should go. He had the lyrics and everything, but one day I was like, I just love this song. And he's like, well, I've always liked your voice. Why don't you go in the vocal booth and like take a pass at it? And I was like, okay, and then it didn't work out. And he was like, I just want to have like one singer on the whole thing. So he hired a friend to come in and do the vocals. And then they were running through the tracks to do the final mix of the record. And the engineer was just like, what's this track? And it's my vocal track. And he's just like, dude, who's that singer? And it was me. And I'm like, and
so the project lead didn't like your vocals, but the producer did.
No, the project lead liked my vocals. He just didn't want to have two different vocalists on the whole thing. Okay. Yeah, which is Paul. He and I've always liked, singing together, and I always liked his lyrical and vocal ideas. And he always liked my voice. We just didn't have like the money to get together because he lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and I live here in Portland, Oregon. So one day,
the coolest city in North America.
But yeah, like the mix engineer pulled it up and he's just like, whoa, man, this is the vocalist that you need. Why isn't he on the rest of these? And Paul's like, oh, I don't know. He calls me up and he was like, dude, so what do you think about singing on the rest of this record? And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll do it, hell yeah. And I love your lyrics and I love the concepts we're talking about. I would say it probably does lean a little left to center, but that is because I think that only is because like typically on a broader political spectrum, not liberal, Democrat, not Republican, not American political spectrum, like actual political spectrum, the real political spectrum, like that we study in school that no one follows. it's a little left leaning because it's not about stasis. It's about change. You know, it's about it. Like, to me, like the liberal side of things, like the slightly left of center, or even maybe a little bit further left of center, is more about progressive and social change and social progress. And conservative, real conservatism, which I think has a place, you know, of maintaining, you know, and the fight between maintaining and progress. You know, there are certain things we want to keep in society. You don't want to just change moral values, like loving family relationships are really important.
Yeah, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. So there has to be this sort of natural balance between those things. And I think we discussed that in, you know, I think Paul's lyrics really discuss that in, not broad, it's like incisive. I always say, I don't say insightful, I say incisive, because it cuts to the core, you know, of what, you know, what people really go through. And so some of it's kind of, you know, political speak and stuff like that, but a lot of it's really just like, holy crap, I've never heard it put that way before, and it's so to the point. I'm sure if it was put out and got any sort of like backing behind it, you know, Republicans probably more than anybody would not like it.
Well, but if you're not pushing a democratic agenda or a liberal agenda or whatever you want to call it, if you're just saying we have problems and we need to work on them, we need to fix them, then I mean, if you've got the old sticks in the mud that want no change at all, sure, they might dislike it. But it sounds like maybe most people who aren't happy about something would like the music. Yeah,
I think the music is the music and the statements. It's, if you really understand like political and like sort of historical implications and stuff like that, I think you really like it. It might be a little bit deep for the average listener, and it's not like Pink Floyd where it's got some really great epic moments, but it's also got those King Crimson and Voivod and like very progressive moments. Whereas Pink Floyd Pink Floyd was a progressive band, but they were not very progressive after like a certain period. Their popular period, like anything past like Dark Side of the Moon, it wasn't really progressive rock. I mean, it had progressive moments for sure, and Odd Meter and stuff, but it wasn't like Dream Theater or something like that. And this probably has a little bit more of that, you know, technical type and really aggressive kind of playing and stuff like that. But it also has some really soaring, you know, really like guitar moments that I had like just fully improvised in the studio. And then he took out this whole section and like, it was just like, there's your guitar solo. And I'm just like, where'd you pull that out of? And I was like, there's like a mistake in there. And he's like, no, that's not a mistake. That's you. And I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking mistake. And, you know, we had to do some editing to it.
Is it the kind that if it's playing, you're going to run over and drop the volume knob just for a second and then bring it back up?
Yeah, I just pull the fader. No, but no, we did edit it. And, you know, if the project ever had funding, I'd want to re-record like everything perfect, you know, because there's so much great stuff on it. But also what he's trying to get at, and the point of like why we're doing it the way he's doing it, is to try to get that rawness of the initial spark of something. You know, what does it feel like to have this whole idea come out of you? And that's the initial spark. Yeah. You know, like, whereas like a typical progressive rock thing is very like sanitized and overthought, and it's this long epic thing with no emotional content almost. It's like somehow progressive rock tends to like focus on the cerebral more than it does the emotional. There are obviously bands that do have a lot of emotional content, but it's not raw. It's not punk rock, and it's not just like jamming in a room, smashing your hand into your instrument over and over again, even when you're making a mistake, and just going, fuck. We're just beating the shit out of our instruments and playing it, and then go, oh, that's good enough to sing over. And you just take it and then sing over it. It was wild. Because this one particular jam that we did, he probably used 95% of the jam.
Wow.
And the stuff I just improvised, and he was like, that's a section, that's a section, that's a section. We had this drummer, who I'm spacing on his name right now, but his main gig is playing with Al Jones from former Earth, Wind and Fire, and he plays with Wicked Wisdom, which is Will Smith's wife's band, and he came up to do a song with us, or like a session with us, and we improvised on this sort of like, it was like Solar, or not Solar, but it was oh man, what's that song called? It's off a Miles Davis record. Damn it, I can't remember the title. Anyway, it was based on a Miles Davis riff, and we just jammed for like 15 minutes. And when we got done, we all looked at each other like, that's a take. And it was just like, he just started playing this 3/4 groove, and Paul started playing the riff, and I improvised these melodies that ended up being the hook of the song. Just one take, the melodies, and it was like, it sounded like a song right away. We were so inspired that weekend. Everything was inspired, like all the guitar tones. I mean, the very first solo I sat down and played that weekend, I sat down in the chair, got a guitar tone, and we were like looking at each other like, dude, that's tone. And he goes, let's do this. First guitar solo I played of the whole weekend. It was a total take.
Nice.
And then I was like, I made a mistake there. And he went, okay. And I fixed the back half of it. It was like, it wasn't even the back half. It was like, so in like 3 takes, I had like a done solo on a song I had never heard before. And I did and that was how inspired we were at the time, like working on this project. And anyway.
Well, I'm gonna beg Brandon and Paul to let me play something on the air. And if they still say no, then eventually I will play something on the Hard, Heavy, and Hair show when they release it.
Yeah. I'll see if I can't get like a, I think we have a mix that I could give you, but there's some things that are out of balance. Like, it's not mastered, so it's like the dynamics aren't even.
Okay.
But I'll see what I can do.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that song is called, oh man. Well, that's also about sort of it's about emotional. It's actually about emotional therapy. Couples going through emotional therapy, and sometimes there's an emotional manipulator in the midst, and that person uses the therapy against the other partner, and then the therapist is sort of caught in between, so they don't always call out the person who's doing the manipulating.
Yeah.
And it becomes this really toxic environment. Emotional therapy can become that. And this song is so cutting in that area. It's just, it gets the first time I heard myself sing the song, I just bawled for like an hour, because it was so close to some experiences I've had with that. And that I love the Invasive Species project because of that, because Paul has this like they can be very cutting sarcastic, but it's the reason you're sarcastic and the reason you're feeling that is because the way someone has manipulated you for years and years, using I'm not toxic kind of mentality, where like, they're actually the toxic one and they can't see their own toxicity. So they're like, well, I'm just following this is what our person says, but they're so perfectionizing what that person has asked us to do. So you're trying to be the person that's, like, okay, you're right. That's what this is. And then you say it the way that they want you to say it. And they go, well, that's really mean and hurtful that you said it that way. What do you mean? I'm expressing my feelings. I said, I feel this way when you do that. So and you're using the nonviolent, communication. And then they go, well, I feel hurt when you say it that way. Well, I just followed the protocol, what you asked me to do. And no, you're just being abusive now. Wait, I'm not.
Nothing you do is right.
Yeah, so that song actually describes that dynamic of how in our country, like emotional therapy has done that. That has become like a talking point on the internet and they use those victim mentalities as affirmations. You know, like I read a meme today that was like something about how like, well, I gave you $10 and he gave you 20, but you didn't realize that all I had was $10, and it sets up this victim dynamic for the person that gives the money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, so what if he had $200 and he only gave 20? That's what he had to give that day. Maybe you don't realize that he has a house payment and a child support payment and da-da-da-da-da, and you gave $10 and that's all you had. I'm sorry that that's what you did, and she chose him, but you're not a victim because of it. You didn't lose something. She liked him. That's it. And people set this up as like, oh, you pick the guy with more money. No, that's not what it is at all. You know, that's like this gaslighting victim belief about like how things work in relationships, and it's like, that's not how it works. That's not healthy. You know, if you give something, you give it. That's you give. It's no guilt trips after that. You're like, I gave you $10 and that's all I had. I hope that helps you. And that's what real giving to me is supposed to be, and not expectation of something in return. And as men, we're sort of like taught that when I give you this, it's because I love you and you should love me back. And no one owes you shit. You know, you have to go like, oh, I give this and I give it freely. And if you choose another man, or if a woman gives and the man chooses another woman, we can't be expected to make those choices just because you gave them something and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
kindness and love should not be transactional.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then when I brought that up to the person that posted it, he was just like, you just don't get it, do you? And maybe I don't get it. Maybe I don't get what he's saying. And really what he's saying is like, I feel hurt. And it's totally okay for someone to feel hurt when they give in something and they had something expected in return. Of course you feel hurt because maybe she said something like, I love you and I want to be with you forever. And then the other guy gave her more money but do you really want that person in your life at that point? No. You know, if
dodged a bullet.
Yeah, you dodged a bullet. Good for you. You know, and like the victim mentality in American like emotional mentalities is like, it's so deeply ingrained. Like this puritanical, the man makes the money and the man gives you something, gives you this sort of like dowry of the day, you know, our modern version of the dowry. I've given you this and now you're going to have sex with me, or you're going to marry me, or I bought you a ring and it was only $10, but he bought you a bigger one and you picked him. Oh, you're a whore. Why would you pick him? You know, yeah. I'm the one that I spent everything I had and he only spent a fraction. Okay. Well, sorry, you know, we had a really great chemistry. I love him and he loves me. We're just going to go be happy now. So that I wish more people would talk about because this is really, I think, important for men, you know, to be talking about this more, you know, and if I can be involved in projects, you know, this is pertinent to the music part. If I can be involved in projects that shed light on that, I want to shed light on, like, you know, things that people talk about, toxic masculinity. That's not about men being bad. It's talking about how, like, this version of masculinity that we live in America has become so domineering and expectation orientated. You know, it's like, I have money, I'm going to give it to you, or I'm going to buy you things, and then I get things back from you, because that's how power works. And like women and, you know, people in more subservient positions are like, no, that's not how it works. I don't know you anything, because they're developing more power of their own and they're becoming more empowered in themselves. And of course there's major pushback from the toxic masculine version of things. And but, you know,
okay, I want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So you're a rock star. You're in hard rock and heavy metal.
Sure.
Okay. Whether you like,
I'll buy that for a second.
Okay. So one of the main themes of at least 80s arena rock, and whether you like the term or not, please pardon me, hair metal. And obviously I don't have a problem with it. I don't think he does either. But one of the main themes of hair rock is, masculinity. Mm-hmm. And, we grew up on the music videos that have Tawny Katane on the car, or, on the hood of the Jags, that have Bobby Brown, the Cherry Pie Girl. We have the sexy girls. We have the rock stars on stage. We have Motley Crue, Looks to Kill. The music video is them fighting these women. And then by the end of the video, the women are bowing down. They're subservient to, the crew. And, anybody who knows the crew or has ever heard of the crew knows what they're like with women.
Yeah.
But how do you see that now, in the 21st century, going into the third decade of the 21st century? Mm-hmm. How do you see that with rock stars and, the behind the scene stuff? Is it still like the 80s? Is it still toxic masculinity? Or was it ever, and was it just a stage presence?
Well, I think the men that in that community that have, a more balanced view of like healthy relationships and stuff like that. First of all, they're the ones that can keep things together with a band, because, they know how to have healthy relationships with everybody. They have a great crew that stayed with them for years and years and years. I hear about guys going through therapy and stuff like that have done their work and tried to do that. But I think it really speaks volume. If you listen to 105.9, the songs that stuck from the 80s, that, some of them are they're more empowering women, girls, girls, girls. It's the girls are the focus. And the girls are the ones that empower in those videos. Or in that situation, the guys are just they're fawning over them. The girls are still just you got to do something to get this, and I don't know. I think it's I think it's a different dynamic now. The songs that really, really stuck, the vulnerability songs of men, they were the ones that were huge in the 80s too. The ballad.
Yeah. Why
did they go big? It's because people connected with them. They resonated with that vulnerability.
Poison. Every rose has its thorn.
Yeah.
Something to believe in Home makes me cry every time.
Home Sweet Home.
Yeah.
Mama, I'm Coming Home. Ozzy.
Metallica's cover of Turn the Page.
Imagine anybody
felt their pain.
What's that? Sorry.
Metallica's cover of Turn the Page.
Oh yeah, exactly. That song unbelievably went huge. It was it's a Bob Seger tune, and Bob Seger classically knew how to write vulnerable love songs and stuff like that. And he's still fucking huge to this day. The guy's 70 years old, and one of my favorite Eagles songs was Best of My Love. It's still one of their biggest tunes. I mean, it's about really it's both of the partners, they weren't able to make the connection. It wasn't you're a bitch, and it wasn't oh, I'm a dick. It was I know that you were giving the best of what you had, and that's I did that too. And those are the songs that really, I mean, they just keep living over and over again, that showing that vulnerable side, and they're the ones that really had the most popularity. I'm the One Who Wants to Be With You. Yep. It wasn't the hard, fast, dirty songs of Mr. Big that made it big. It was I'm the One That Wants to Be With You. And Extreme. How many amazing songs did those guys have? And the one that stuck was More Than Words.
And Wholehearted. Similar.
He's saying, baby, I need you to do something more than just say you love me. And it doesn't say that I need you to have sex with me. It doesn't even hint at that in that song. I'm sure that the physical love is part of that in there, but he's saying, I need connection. I want connection with you. He's not saying I want to fuck you. He's saying I want more than what that can offer.
Yeah, it's easy to say the words. I need to feel it.
Yeah. And I think that first of all, people really had that. There was way more ballads and soft, vulnerable tunes in the 90s. And men have gotten more comfortable singing. Think about how many vulnerable love songs that Journey wrote, and how many of them are still famous and get played every day.
Yeah.
Journey is bigger now than they were in the 70s and 80s. They're huge now. that, and most of the reason was because I think Steve Perry brought this vulnerability to the band. You know, he was willing to talk about like passionate love that had something to do with more than just having sex. You know, Neil Schon was this sort of like punk guitar kid, you know, that could shred and stuff like that, but they never talked about anything that was like pertinent to relationships before that. And look how big they were then. Not. You know, and then you get like songs like Open Arms and Faithfully and stuff like that just really are still gigantic, enormous songs. And I think that it's really proof positive that male vulnerability is a powerful thing. It's a huge, powerful thing. And when we can learn to harness that vulnerability and express it to our partners, you know, whether it's a man or a woman or transgender or whatever, you know, if we can use that, even if it's like masculinity as a non-gender thing, that women have that masculine parts to their characteristics, and they can learn to express that type of masculinity too, and be powerful, vulnerable in their masculinity too. I see that role in women. Like I've noticed more women stepping into that masculine role, and I don't think that's like, you know, bad for society. Like some people are like, women are getting masculine. That's wrong. You know, like needs to stay that the man is masculine. And it's like, no, man. Everybody needs that positive masculine, because if a woman is doing toxic masculine stuff, which happens all the time, it's not as much as the men doing it, of course, but it happens, you know, like being domineering. Like think of how many people like Sharon Osbourne. I know she's a really powerful like businesswoman, and I respect her immensely for what she's done in the music industry, but she's done some really toxic things to get that, you know, and hurt a lot of people and just but what if she wasn't that? How bad would she have gotten hurt as a woman if she hadn't been aggressive that way?
True.
She was just fighting the same battle, and she just happened to win. So the victors get the spoils, and the losers get to write the story about how the victor was an asshole. You know, like
interesting point.
You know. Anyway, sorry.
We got to hear from the people who are paying my bar tab this week.
Okay, cool.
But before we do that, I want to ask two more quick questions about Loyal Order. When are we going to hear an album?
We have 2 songs to finish, and when those songs are done, we'll put the record out. And then our other song is a sort of a top secret project that we're working on, and we're trying to get a particular instrumentalist on this record, and I can't divulge any information other than it's a huge surprise, and when it happens, it's gonna help a lot because we're working on some business aspirations to get us into certain other pools of influence.
Okay, now I'm intrigued.
So I don't want to divulge anything other than the reason we haven't released it is because of a very calculated risk that we need to take to put more visibility on the album when it comes out.
Okay.
And it has to do with it's a business decision, you know, and if we want it to be the strongest release that we can do. So I think what we're probably going to do is release a video to keep everybody's appetite wet. And most likely it'll be the Shawaktani video. So,
okay.
But the album's coming before next summer.
Great.
So it's going to be sooner than later.
All right. Let's hold that thought, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm here with Brandon Cook, guitarist for Black and Blue and Loyal Order and a few other projects. And we were talking about the Loyal Order. We're going to get to Black and Blue in a little bit. So we're looking at an album before next summer, which is great. And I've already played some music. I'm going to play some more of the Loyal Order music. You did your first and so far only live show in September.
Yeah.
Of September 27th, 2019, Portland, Oregon. And you opened for who?
Puddle of Mudd.
How'd that go?
The live show, like we finally enlisted like the right lineup for this group. You know, we worked with some other people, and you know, like we love those people that we had in our band. You know, we've had drummer of the Eels. His name is Joe Mangus. He played on a couple of our records, or a couple of songs. Records in the record industry is one tune. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
One record is technically one song.
Yeah, because they used to come out on 45s.
Right, exactly. And so making records is making songs. And so anyway, I sometimes...
And we're kind of back to that these days.
Yeah, and that's how we've been doing it, one song at a time. And so we're actually doing the old school model, like the pre-Golden Era model of like, you make your record, you release it, and then you release an album, like sort of posthumously to all those records, you know, once they're all dead. Then the record company goes, we got to make them some more money, so put out those old hits, and you put out the album with all the hits on it. So,
but then people were buying albums. You'd hear, you know, there was album-oriented rock, AOR. Yeah, and a lot of thought went into
Beatles
arranging.
And the Stones really kind of started that because they were selling enough of them that they could actually do a single and a record and an album. So, yeah, did you like that?
I didn't know that's where it started. No.
Yeah, they started. I think they had their first hit was like "Love Love Me Do," and they generated so much.
Yeah, I think so.
Thing that they were able to put out an album, but they did mostly covers on their first record, and then they were like, "No, we want to put out our songs." And since they were making records of their own tunes, they weren't doing like cover songs like most everybody else was doing. They were able to generate more income that way. And then I think the Stones sort of like started after them, and that started a new era of like, I mean, even Elvis, he didn't put out his own songs till way later. Oh, yeah. He was doing all like classic black music covers, like blues and like pop hit covers.
Yeah. Carl Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're trying to go back to that. We went back to that old model just because we didn't see people buying albums as much, and we've gotten, because of this live show, we realized that like I think we have like more traction to sell records. Patrick Young for Black and Blue, he's playing bass for us. I mean, he's already a stellar bass player, but like he had to play like the riffs that me and Jeff played on bass, and it was a little bit of a learning curve for him because he'd never really played our style of bass playing before. But he took his Patrick Young, beat the shit out of it, 80s rock, badassery bass playing style, and learned our bass lines and took it to the next level, you know, of like 35 years of, you know, recording and stage experience of just beating the crap out of a killer Jackson concert bass. And it sounds so amazing, you know. Now our songs sound better than we believed they could sound. You know, we already knew we had good songs, and we took them on the stage because we were getting reaction every time we put out a video. People would just be like, "Oh God, you guys got to put out a record! Oh, when are we going to see you live?" And
I'm one of them. Yeah. I've said that on the show multiple times. You know, I've played. I forget the name of it because we're talking about everything else. Ready for Dead. I've played Ready for Dead, and it's like, I can't wait for an album from these guys. And it's not because you're my friend. It's because it's a great fucking band.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You know, like
you said to me once, if you weren't in the band, you'd be a fan of them.
Yeah, that's kind of how I like to write music. If I'm writing something, I like to be a fan of it. You know, like I know for a fact if I wasn't in the band, I would like Fuck or Fight as a song. There's just like I said, there's that sort of emotional, like I don't want to talk about that. You know, I want to talk about like happier stuff. And in my own writing, I tend to write a little bit happier about things. But like that's one of those dark places I try not to get too close to because it was really close to my heart for a few years. Anyway, but I still would be a fan of that song, you know. But like Half-Life, everything about that song I love. It was just like we were going like, okay, we're gonna start playing live now. Who do we really want? And you know, it was never to judge anybody and say like, you know, like that guy sucks. You know, it was just like, who's right for this band? Who's really right for this band? And it just kind of emerged. Like, and what didn't really have anything to do with who wanted to be in the band or not. It was just who I wanted in the band, and who Jeff wanted in the band. And sometimes, you know, like I'm an HR person. I've chosen like so many replacement players for so many bands.
Okay.
You know, I'm that guy. I'm always watching that. That's my passion. I love watching players. I'm with guitar players, drummers, bass players, keyboards, blah 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 blah. Like people are like a great like baseball scout is. That's how I am. I'm just like, ooh, that guy's got that thing. I really like that. You know, and he's got great hair. No, I'm kidding, but like, okay. Anyway, so.
All right, so that makes me think. Supergroup. Put together, do it on the fly. Put together a supergroup.
Put together a supergroup right now?
Right now. Anybody alive or dead?
Anybody alive or dead. So I'd want to sing, and I would want to be like one of the focal points in the group, because I love writing songs, and I have a lot of my own tunes that I write. So okay. Like, I would want to have like my supergroup maybe be in the vocal position, you know, with my ultimate voice, like in the best shape. And I can't always do that because reflux kind of gives me extra phlegm and stuff like that. And I have struggled with maintaining like a killer voice with that problem. So
that's gotta be rough.
It's a little rough, but that's what I would want to be in my supergroup.
Okay.
So supergroup there.
So like a throat coat IV.
Yeah, throat coat IV, right there, and it would just be like, it'll be like a mister, like a what's those things called? Not a carburetor, fuel injection. It's like a fuel injection. And then like I'd want to have like Marty Friedman as my lead guitarist, because he's like one of the most creative guitar players on the planet, and.
I want to come back to Marty Friedman because it's something I want to ask you about, but keep going.
Okay, cool. And oh man, there's so many amazing drummers, like so many, just like one of the drummers that I've been really into lately, his name's Chris Frazier. I've been into him since he was on Steve Vai's Passion Warfare record.
Great album.
Yeah, and he played most of the drums on that album.
Okay.
There was a couple of other guys on there too. One of them was Tris Imboden from Y&T, and like a couple other dudes, but Chris Frazier was one of the main dudes on that record. And he plays in Foreigner now, and I've been watching a bunch of Foreigner live stuff because of my tribute stuff, and he's better now than he's ever been. He's just a killer rock drummer, and it would be probably him somewhere. If it would be like him. Oh no, I take that back. Sorry Chris, I love your drumming, but in my band it would have to be Nick Menza, you know, like so like half the band would be that, you know. And then like bass player, I really love David Ellison, but I think it would have to be Jason Newsted on bass. Jason Newsted is one of my longtime favorite bass players. I love how hard he hits the bass. David Ellison is an amazing bass player. Him and David Ellison are my top two bass players, but I can't just be like the Mustaine in a Megadeth repeat. So it just so happens that Marty and Nick are my two favorite dudes, but then like rhythm section wise, you know, I would, you know, actually even like I could take Lars, if Lars Ulrich practiced. So if Lars Ulrich practiced the drums, he'd be my drummer, because he's one of the most creative drummers in existence. The guy has so many amazing ideas. I love Lars Ulrich's ideas. His live execution of those is not always the best, but like his arrangements and like what he does to songs by going, no, we got to do this. And even though, you know, like it was James and Cliff Burton doing that too, but Lars is actually one of the major engines of creation of Metallica. And I would love to have him like fucking with my songs and going like, hey, like do that thing, but like do it again like that over there. Like that would be really cool. You know, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. That's pretty cool. You know, and then of course, but then like, so I have to think of a different non-Megadeth Metallica member for my bass player. Okay, let's see. Somebody that plays with a pick, because that's the kind of pick playing I love. Maybe Roger Glover, but he doesn't play metal. Roger Glover, that's another one of my favorite bass players of all time. That guy fucking.
Yeah, he's a badass.
Lemmy's an amazing pick player, but he's not technical enough. to like, 'cause I write things in my bands a little bit more technically. Somebody that didn't play in Megadeth and Metallica that plays with a pick. That.
Okay.
So, and then I would have to have a killer.
If anybody wants to audition, if you didn't play in Megadeth or Metallica bass and you play bass with a pick, you can audition for Brandon Cook's supergroup.
Yes! Good call. Yeah. Oh man, there's so many great ones out there too. I know I'm just not thinking of that person because I'm on the spot. But
yeah, totally unplanned question, just totally out of left field.
Yeah.
So.
Nick Douglas from Doro's band is really amazing. That guy's you know Doro Pesh?
Oh yeah.
He's a stellar drummer. Johnny D has become. I hung out with him a little bit on the MegaCruise last week, and that motherfucker is a killer drummer. So he would be a top candidate for my supergroup. I love that guy, Jimmy DeAnda. I've actually. Can I just like? I'm just gonna gloat for a minute here. Can I?
Please.
I gloat? I've had a year from heaven with drummers, and it started a year ago. I started in 2013. I got to play with Pete Holmes. The guy is like one of the greatest drummers living. He's severely underappreciated, but he's literally like one of the greatest drummers I've ever seen, period. He's the most consistent drummer I've ever played with. He hits harder than anybody I've ever played with. The guy's fucking insane. Got great feel. He's got insightful like arrangement ideas. He's like, your guitar playing needs this and that. He just knows how to make, and he's played with everybody. He's played with Ian Gillan. He's played with Michael Schenker. So like, I'm extremely lucky to be playing with him at all. And he's the reason that I've been playing with all these other guys. So I played with Marco Miniman. And obviously the dude, I got to do that at the Ultimate Jam. The dude has played with, the Aristocrats, and he's played with Paul Gilbert, and he's played with, I can't remember the name of that death metal band that really got him. Dissection? No. Can't remember. Anyway, they're like really, really insane. And he was playing with Paul Gilbert, playing more light, airy stuff, and he got this death metal gig where he's doing like blast beats and shit. And we're just like, jazz fusion drummer Marco Miniman playing with them. Oh, okay, wow. So,
but that's that was kind of like my reaction way back when I heard Michael Jackson was in the studio with Slash.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Mind blown.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was the beginning of this year. Then I played with Joe Travers, who's played with Dweezil Zappa, and I played with this guy named Fernando Jaramillo. Travers is with Joe Satriani, Dweezil Zappa, and a bunch of other people. And Joe just blew my mind. He just, like, playing with him was like, I've known him since I knew him right the weekend that he got the gig with Frank Zappa, or Dweezil Zappa. And, like, I was at this music camp at Berkeley where he was doing, like, he was doing a clinic. He was doing clinics with us. Like, he was being like the guest rhythm section with Brian Beller, who also got the Dweezil Zappa gig that weekend. And I've known those guys 25 years, like who they were, and then I got to play with them. Like this year, I got to play with Joe, and it was just, it felt like we were at the same level. Like he's obviously like plays with Dweezil and Joe Satriani, but it was like, okay, I'm in that realm now. And
he surfs with the alien.
Yeah, he surfs with the real alien.
Yeah.
And I'm just like going, fuck, now I have to play at that level. I have to. And that's like my next goal, like become that sort of iconic guitar player, like making decisions on my own that lead me to working with those kind of guys all the time. So,
well, now I've seen him play, so I'm kind of biased, but you're no slouch. And Marty Friedman from Megadeth bowed down to you on stage. I have video evidence. I've seen the video. Marty Friedman, they're both playing axe,
bows
down to Brandon Cook on stage.
I'm not sure if he did that at every night that they had somebody up there. But I've known Marty for quite a number of years, and when I met him, I wasn't ready to play on stage with him, and we've kept in touch off and on for years, and it's usually me reaching out, of course, because he's busy. But like when he first met me, I wasn't ready to play in his band, and like that's another one of those drummers that I got to play with. Chargy, Marty's drummer, is fucking insane. He's unbelievable. But yeah, Marty, like, he really like edified me that week. You know, that day when I played with him, he was just like, man, you've come so far since I first met you. You know, you really are playing great, and I'm really happy for you. And dude, thanks for being here. And I was like,
wow.
You know, like, I just showed up at his gig with my daughter, and he was doing this thing where he like invites anybody up, and I was just like, oh, you know, and pushed to the front. I'm like, dude, and he's like, you. Yeah, I think he knew I'd be there, so he was kind of waiting for me. But like at the same time, if I hadn't gone up, he would have picked somebody else. So just to keep rolling, like, great drummers I played with, this guy Fernando Yaramillo, who played with he actually is a Grammy nominated artist too. He just like, he blew me away when I got to play with him with Delana. Unbelievable, like, presence in a beat with no click track. Just like, I was like, dude, are you playing on a click track back there? And he's like, no.
Just for the uninitiated, what's a click track?
Okay, the uninitiated. Click track is when, have you ever heard of metronome where it goes click, 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 and you practice piano or violin or guitar or whatever, right, with the beat? Well, a lot of modern drummers, probably 90% of modern drummers have to play with a click track, because productions have gotten so big in the record that you can't produce it with 4 members of a band anymore, or 5 members of a band. You have to have like onstage keyboards, you have to have sounds that are triggered from your drums, or like a pre-recorded track that fills in the sound that you can only really make with the album. And a band, most of your favorite bands, will sound very empty without those backing tracks. And the only way to get the backing tracks to continue live is to line them up with a click track. And probably 90% of your favorite bands play with a click track. And it's okay. It's not something you should judge them for, because you wouldn't like it as much if it was just the 4 members of the band without that stuff. Because most listening ears need that now. And it's not your fault, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just rock and roll get really boring if all you hear is guitar, bass, drums, keyboards over and over again. So you have to have those things filling in. And the only way to really line it all up is for the drummer to play to a click track. So anyway,
thank you.
He was not playing to a click track that night, and it sounded fucking huge. It was just, we played the Cranberries' Zombie. And it was one of my most memorable live performances ever, just because of the band that I played with. It was me, Buhner from Loyal Order playing bass, Delana singing, and Mitch Perry on guitar. And that son of a bitch is an amazing guitarist, man. I would learn so much from playing with him. And that was really intense for me. And then another great drummer that I played with was Paul Di'Anno's drummer. His name is Francis Casol. What's up, Francis? He's really just intensely amazing. We got together and played several tunes impromptu that we'd never played before, and it was me and Ira Black and Jeff Buhner and a couple other dudes, and Francis was the drummer. And I was like, dude, fuck yeah. And it was really amazing. And then it was at a human trafficking charity event where Greg Bissonet's setting up a cocktail set right before us, and he played before us, and we were just like, that's the guy that was straddling the drum kit in the Just Like Paradise video. Oh my God. You know, that he plays with Ringo Starr. Why is he here? You know,
was it nerve-wracking to follow Jeff Bissonette?
Yeah, it was. My hand was shaking when I had to play. Because it was like, dude, Greg Bissonette is like...
Sorry.
He's a
thinking
legend.
Jeff Buhner, Greg Bissonette.
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, Jeff's a legend, too. No, Jeff is a legend. I love him. He's just like, he hits the bass in a way that like most people don't play anymore. He just has like this, he's got a real thing vibe that is, you know, he gets invited to play the Ultimate Jam quite a bit. He can't always do it because he doesn't live in LA, but he actually, you know, people, they reach out to him and be like, dude, can you play the jam this week? And he's like, I'm not in LA. Oh, okay, well, and then they know he's not in LA and they'll still call him, you know, because he's that kind of bass player. Anyway, I got to play with Jimmy DeAnda this year. Jimmy DeAnda has always been one of my favorite drummers. That guy blew me away when we got to play with him at M3, and we just did a festival with him a couple weeks ago. And then I got to play with...
And that was a Black and Blue.
Yeah, that was a Black and Blue thing. I got to play with Todd Latour on drums, who's the lead singer of Queensryche. We did sound check, and we played Cowboys from Hell. That was pretty amazing. I got to play with... I think I got to play with Johnny D a little bit. I don't think so. But I got to play with this dude named Darren Elwell, who plays with Last Rocket.
And going back to MegaCruise, you just took MegaCruise, and it was... You told me it was a cruise that you weren't working. You were just going as an attendee.
Yeah.
And then you're posting video of Todd Latour singing and you on stage and playing this whole set.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
My friend Tyson Leslie is like, he has this jam called Rare Hair, and Devil Driver's lead singer, his wife got cancer. It was diagnosed with cancer very recently, and he backed out of the cruise. So they called Tyson and said, can you put something together? And he messaged me like that day. He's like, dude, can you be ready? Because I know you're on the cruise. And I was like, yeah, let's do it, you know? And so I got to go play with Dirk Verburen from Megadeth on drums. So like I've had a hell of a year playing with amazing drummers, man. And, you know, all my guys that I work, and like Kyle Baltus, like that's one of the things about him. It's like having that pedigree that I've been working on for many years, and having all these great drummers playing around us. And then Kyle's a young guy who's really humble and doesn't think of himself as that kind of drummer, but he is. He's a world-class international level drummer that has played fucking Download Festival, you know, and he just knows how to create vibe playing this style of music. You know, you asked that in the middle of me telling you about Kyle, and it was like, you know, he's one of those drummers I played with this year that made me step my level up. It made me go, you know, I've been playing guitar 30 years, and, you know, these guys are that good. And I'm just like, wow, that's so consistent. I have to be that consistent as a guitarist. So what do I have to do to be that consistent as a guitarist? I have to just clear the table and practice, you know, like, oh, what are you doing? Well, not that, because I have to practice for this. You know, when I got on the MegaCruise, I spent 30 hours practicing. I went through and like did a coat check of all the hours that I spent playing guitar just for doing the, you know, this 10-song Rare Hair thing and 2 Megadeth songs. I practiced like the 4 or 5 hours the first day I got it, and then every day that week building up to it, I got the note that I was going to do it either Tuesday or Wednesday before MegaCruise. I was traveling Thursday, and I spent 3 days with a friend of mine down there, and we were hanging out just doing stuff, and, you know, it was like, hey, do you need to practice? Yes, I need to practice. So, you know, like, I even like set aside that time that I was supposed to spend hanging with my buddies. I had to like go, no, I have to practice, because I'm not going to suck when I play with Todd Latour. I'm not going to suck when I play with Dirk Verburen and David Ellison and Tom Hazart, you know, who's singing with David Ellison right now. And, you know, his 2 guitar players that play with Dave and Tom on a regular basis. Clayton, who's just a really wonderful, sweet dude and a great guitarist. He got to do the Kiss Jam on the cruise. Like, he had to play like 20 songs with like Alex Skolnick and all those guys. Wow. And I was just like bowing to him. I'm just like, fuck, man, good job under the gun. And then Dave Sharp was Dave's other guitarist. I got to play with both those guys, or hang with both of them a little bit, and I didn't get to play with Clayton, unfortunately. But like, I got to play with all these really insane musicians, man, and like, if I didn't put the time in, you know, the 30 hours that I spent on the cruise, missing Testament, missing Overkill, missing, you know, Death Angel and all these bands that I wanted to see live, I couldn't have, you know, I probably could have got through, you know, but I didn't want to just get through. And this is the mission of my life. I don't want to just get through. I've never wanted to just get through. I've always wanted to be like on the thrive level, the forward edge, you know, the cutting edge of everything. And I'm not always there, but, you know, my circumstances didn't necessarily allow me to be there. But now I'm just like making my own circumstances, because it's the opportunity to play with these people, even if I'm just staying with my bands that I'm in right now. You still have to take those opportunities, because it's the only way that you're going to get like the visibility that people used to get in a $50,000 PR budget from a record label. No one has that anymore. So you have to create your own PR. Yeah. You have to go like, I can play with this person, you know? Oh, wow, you're good enough to like stand there and play that awesome with that guy? Okay. Why don't you come down and audition, you know? Or why don't you come down and have the Loyal Order do this for us? Or why don't you, wow, you played with those guys?
Well, somebody else that you're good enough to stand there and play with was Metallica.
Oh, yeah. That was probably the beginning of it all. That really, like, that was the moment that I realized I was good enough to have a music career of my own. And I had studied with Marty Friedman the previous summer, auditioning for his band, and I wasn't really ready. I told you that earlier. I wasn't really ready to be able to, you know, play at the world-class level.
Yep.
And he taught me some things at that moment that really put me in the queue for playing at a world-class level. And, you know, there's a lot of really great guitar players, you know, but what Marty taught me was something different. You know, he didn't want you to just be like world class. He wanted you to be beyond professional. It's professional and beyond, like the 1% level, the 0.05% level. You know, he knew that because I had certain knowledge, that I had the ability to do these other things. I think, you know, like, he obviously wouldn't have said the things that he told me to do if I wasn't sort of waiting for that kind of thing. And, you know, I haven't put out records that put me in that top 1% of guitarists in the world. You know, I haven't put out a major label record deal album, or even like a minor label record deal album. But I still have been working on like doing that for years and years and years. It just so happens that like I got that knowledge when I was 30 and becoming a father, you know, like, and as I've been having my kid and sort of fighting through the trials and tribulation of being a dad and trying to break into the music industry, it was a longer trajectory for me. But now that I'm playing with these guys like Black and Blue and, you know, like really, really insane players, and like the Guns N' Roses tribute band I played with, they really set me up to be able to have this. But like, going back to Metallica, sorry, I got off.
I want to go back to the Guns N' Roses tribute band in a minute.
Yeah, so like the Metallica thing taught me that I can stand next to an icon and play. I can stand next to my absolute heroes and play. I might not be as good as them, but I can do it. And if I can do that, I can do anything. It's like,
hell yeah.
You know, if I can do that, I can make a world-class record if I really want to. If I can get to the place where I can harmonize Kirk Hammett's solo, and Kirk Hammett's looking at me going like, how the fuck did you do that? You know, I harmonized the main guitar solo for one. To see those guys just looking at me like, going, how the fuck did you do that? You know, well, I'll tell you how. I spent like 6 years in jazz school, and I learned how to harmonize like Charlie Parker solos. And, you know, like there was the bunch of stuff I did in guitar class, like with Jerry Hahn, my guitar teacher, where he was like, okay, this song is a harmonized Charlie Parker solo, so play it. And it's like, now you're playing this really strange fucked up line that's like the harmony, the third lower harmony. It's the Charlie Parker solo with the harmony of that, the lower harmony, and then one below that, and then guitar chords and a piano and a bass and a drums. And I'm like the third guitar harmony or the second harmony, or even the lead. You know, we all switched up, but like these crazy harmonies all over the place. And so when it was like, hey, I'm gonna harmonize that solo, it was like a party trick. I would do it like with my friend Corey Proctor was my roommate in college, and a longtime friend before that. He was playing the one solo, and I was like, I should harmonize that. He was just like, okay. So we sat there for a few hours, and he played the main solo, and I figured out a harmony to it. And then when I got the opportunity to play with Metallica, because I won that contest, everyone was like, do the thing. Do the party trick. And it's like, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I like that. A couple of people were like, play a Megadeth song. You know, show them that, fuck those guys, play a Megadeth tune. I was like, no, not gonna do it. Well, why don't you play one of your own tunes? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that either. I want to play something. And then one of my buddies, I think it was Corey, was like, dude, why don't you play the harmony from one? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do that. And it blew him away. And it got me an opportunity that other guys didn't get. I got to play 2 more songs after that. There was a bunch of people that won that contest. And my video, or like my opportunity, I got to actually play 3 tunes with them.
Wow. And
we also played a little bit of Black Knight by Deep Purple.
That's a cool song.
Yeah. I just played like the intro riff, and
okay,
they all started laughing because they're like, oh, dude, you know that? That's crazy that you know that riff. And I was like, yeah, I can hear the Metallica influence in that song. And it's like, because I noticed around that time that I could hear Ian Pace's influence on Lars Ulrich, because he said he was like a huge Deep Purple fan. And when I was going in, it was right before I went to do the thing. Somebody brought in Black Knight, and I was just like, God, that sounds like Metallica. You know, it sounds so much like Metallica. And I was like, I'm going to tell Lars that when I see him. And sure as shit, I said that to him. I was like, yeah, I know Black Knight. And he's like, dude, no way. And I'm like, we talked about Black Knight for a minute, and it was such a mind-blowing experience to be like sort of like riffing with members of Metallica.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just such a I think about it now. I didn't really think about it as much then as I do now. Like, just like what it actually meant to my development of going, oh, I can do this. You know, I had heard, you know, when you're starting, I don't want to call anybody out, but when you're starting a career in music, everybody's heard that a million times. I'm going to be a famous musician. And it's like,
yeah,
the doubt is immediately cast, because everybody that's ever said that has always been talented, you know, but not everybody's got like the guts to go all the way and keep going when it's shit, you know, and keep pounding and going, I need to change this about me if I'm going to do this. You know, like I just started some coaching last week with Matt Starr, another world-class drummer that I've played with over the last couple of years. You know, an opportunity that I'll never forget, because, you know, he's the drummer of Mr. Big Nate, really. You know, Matt, I started doing some coaching with him, and he's an incredibly knowledgeable person. We just had one session, and that's already like sort of got me thinking about different stuff. I'm 44 years old. You have to learn more, you know, like you have to learn more all the time. If you can learn as much as you can in your failures, like I didn't get to play with Metallica forever, but I took everything I learned from that moment. And I didn't get to play in Marty Friedman's band. My friend Jordan Ziff's in his band. But I'm friends with Jordan Ziff, you know, and I get to hang out with him. And Jordan plays in Rat with Pete Holmes, you know, so it's like, wow, I know him, and I know him. That's weird, you know, like, you know, it's so weird, you know, like Jordan shreds with Marty, and he's that kind of guitar player. And I had to learn that, like, maybe I'm not that kind of guitar player. Maybe I am, but maybe I'm not. I got a whole bunch of other shit I need to work on before I'm there. So I just did that. You know, and always being willing to change and grow and try new things, and whatever opportunity you have, you just make the best of that, instead of trying to aim at this one thing always, and that's the only thing you aim at, and everything else is a failure around you because you're only aiming at that one thing. And like that's how I had to like take moments of like what other people would call a failure. I auditioned for Marty Friedman band, didn't get the gig. Oh, I guess you gotta quit now. No, you get your ass back in there and you learn all the things that he told you. Learn to play with a click. Learn to play tighter rhythms. Learn to accept that the Ramones are cool. And learn to accept, because like his favorite artist at the time, literally, Marty Friedman's favorite artist at the time was Britney Spears. And I kind of scoffed at him. To him, I was just like, favorite artist is Britney Spears? And he's just like, oh.
Did you just out him? Do I need to cut that?
No. No, he's not outed. He's like, if liking Britney Spears was wrong, he doesn't want to be right. You know?
Yeah, I didn't mean outing him as gay or anything. I meant outing him as a Britney Spears fan.
Yeah, totally.
Sorry. It's 2019. Who cares about being outed as gay anymore? Oh, you're gay.
Yeah.
Cool.
People would probably
grab a beer.
more horrified if you were liking Nickelback.
Yeah.
Which I do, by the way. So yeah.
My brother.
Yeah, see? There you go.
I like Nick. Okay, yes, they're formulaic, but they still have some really good tunes.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the things I learned from Marty. It was like, he was like, what's real music? He forced me to ask the question, what is real music? And it's like, he said, you know what real music is? Britney Spears is real music. I think he was being challenging with me, like, because I had scoffed at him. You know, I was like, you know, you scoff at your hero because it's something I wasn't really scoffing. I was just so shocked. You know, because literally no great musician that I've ever talked to was that bold to like whatever the fuck they wanted with no apologies, ever. I've never known anybody like that. You know, and he's just like, well, my favorite artist was Madonna when I joined Megadeth. I almost joined Madonna's band. But I chose the Megadeth one because it was this. And I was like, oh. Huh. Wow. Interesting. Or maybe it chose him. I don't know. But like that whole thing, the thing I learned about like that was like liking Nickelback or liking, you know, Fiona Apple or Britney Spears or whatever it is that you like. You find something quality in it and learn from that. And never be afraid to like your favorite artist, because that's the thing that makes you unique. One of the reasons Marty Friedman is the most unique guitarist, one of the most unique guitarists on the planet, and created a whole following of people that tried to be that kind of unique, was because he was bold enough to say it out loud with his guitar and his voice. And if you're not bold enough to do that, you're never going to make it in the music business at that level and be real music. You know, like if you're stuck in the progressive rock world where you're like, Yes and King Crimson are all that's good, so your band's going to sound like Yes and King Crimson and you'll be obscure. But what if you like King Crimson, Yes, Chris Cornell, Britney Spears, and like just some kind of obscure gamelan music from Indonesia, and then like a pop aberration of all that craziness that you heard in a bar, you know, like a Indonesian bar, you know, or like a Vietnamese food bar, and you're like, what is that thing that's playing on the radio? And be open to it. If you don't have that kind of willingness to explore and play the same way you would with Lincoln Logs or like, you know, Etch-a-Sketch or something like that when you're a kid, if you're always just closed to like that one, you know, like vanilla ice cream, or, you know, like all I like is cookie dough ice cream,
then all you're going to make is cookie dough ice cream.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you like Britney Spears, like you like chocolate sprinkle or like multicolored sprinkles on your cookie dough ice cream, somebody's going to like that. Somebody's going to think of it differently. But what if you decided, I want to make my whole new flavor of ice cream that's actually palatable to everybody and like has my own story to it? That's a whole bag of tricks that I'm willing to explore. And part of that is, you know, being willing to change from where I started. And where I started put me into a really small box. Mm-hmm. And all the experiences I've had up till now has put me in it's like, remodel that house. Well, knock that wall out. It's not load bearing. Take it out. We're going to build a room off of that. And then you keep building. You keep building. You keep building. And that the reason I started coaching was because I had a structure that works, and I want to make more money, and I want to be, you know, take the bands that I have at the highest level they can be. And, you know, maybe take the bands beyond the highest level they can be if I can learn enough about me and keep growing. So anyway, hope that's not too...
No. All art builds on other art, but music more so than any other art form. Mm-hmm. I mean, could you play in a modern rock band if Pete Townsend hadn't done what he did with distortion?
It would be way different if he hadn't. You know,
and there weren't effects pedals for him. He was slashing cones and stuff in his speakers.
Yeah.
You know, and before that you had
like Ike Turner or something, you know.
Yeah.
You know, like if it wasn't for him, you know, or Howlin' Wolf, those guys like doing something that was just like, well, this is what I have. This sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
This sounds weird. No one's ever done this before, have they? Have they? Well, fuck, I don't know. Let's do it.
Or for those who aren't as musically inclined, who've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, the part where they keep laying they keep I forget the term, laying the vocals over and over again. Overdub, yeah. So when they keep overdubbing on the tape, you know, and it's experimentation and learning things and learning things from other styles of music, learning, you know, what other people are experimenting with, and seeing how that can be taken further. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all music. That's the entirety of rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, it comes from the blues. It comes from, you know, jazz, and it comes from people smashing their instruments and cutting their speakers and, you know, just doing things that nobody had ever done before and figuring out something new, and then that inspires somebody else to build on that.
Yeah, it reminded me of this. You just reminded me of this thing that happened to Kirk Hammett in the studio when they were doing the Master of Puppets guitar solo. He did this whammy bend that you can't reproduce because the string got caught underneath his pickup or something, and it was like pulled off the neck. And he was doing this harmonic dive, and he was like, I can't. And then they were like, well, you did that thing. How do you get it back? You know, I don't know how they edited it in, but like it sounded so cool. They took that mistake and put it in the solo. And now you can't get that. Like if you just play it, you can't get it. You can't get that sound on a guitar without hooking it under or whatever happened in that situation. You can try, but I've never heard anybody get it right.
That's pretty cool.
A unique moment like that. You know, but those kinds of things, like taking the mistakes and making it art, you know.
The Doors, the hiss of tapes. Well, they cranked it up, and you get the rain sound at the beginning of Riders on the Storm.
Oh, was that what that was?
Yeah, it's
really?
tape hiss.
Wow.
I think Ray Manzarek was there with a mic up against the reel-to-reel, and he had just, you know, and they just cranked it, and they upped the gain.
Oh, that tape hiss. Okay.
Yeah.
Not just tape hiss, the sound of it recording, the actual...
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, listen to the beginning of Riders on the Storm. Well, I mean, it runs all the way through, but at the very beginning, you can hear just the tape hiss, and it sounds like rain.
Oh, I've heard that many times. I love that song. That's fucking crazy. Yeah, but stuff like that, exactly what I'm talking about. Like, or I mean, like in my case, like, you know, I've lost gigs for, you know, not reasons of being a bad player or something, but just like things didn't work out. And I had to learn how to like organize my life in a way that those things didn't happen again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I wasn't able to, you know, continue with the Chris Caffrey band because I was having a kid, and my life wasn't organized in a way that was able to maintain gigging with the band. So he hired Ira Black, who was a really great guitar player and a friend of mine and someone I respect amazingly. But like at the time, I also learned, you know, how to lead myself. So, you know, Chris, I wasn't able to continue on the road because my life wasn't organized in a way that could maintain a life on the road while having a family at home. And I had to learn how to do that. You know, it took me quite a number of years just because, you know, I took it personally. And I thought, you know, there was things in my own personal makeup that made me believe that, oh, those guys don't like me anymore, and I'm a bad person or whatever. I screwed up. And that's part of the reason I started doing emotional therapy, because I didn't want to have those triggers in my life anymore. I wanted to be able to just go through things and have better coping mechanisms when things didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I've learned to function better in the music industry. I mean, to the point where I have like 10 gigs and they just keep coming. You know, like before it was like I had one gig and that's all I had. I got the Chris Gaffer gig. It's the best thing I'm ever going to do. Now I have it. What do I do? Well, I don't have my life set up so that I can actually do this. Fuck. And then it was clear and transparent that I was so anxiety ridden because of what was going on. It wasn't that I played bad or had some kind of meltdown or anything like that. It just, my life wasn't set up to be able to do that. I didn't know. You don't know. You just don't know. And then you arrive there and you got a wife and a child on the way and you got to go take care of your shit. So you can't go on the road. And I learned how to get what I wanted over the last 15 years since my daughter's been alive. And I just realized I had to take really, if I'm going to go back out at 40 or 44 years old, now you have to be at that level as if you've been touring for the last 14 years. So you got to play in as many projects as you can, make enough money, play with enough people, grow, keep growing, keep getting. Now, you know, then when my daughter turns 18, my hope is to be more, doing more touring and stuff like that and continue growing as an artist until I can't anymore. So, it's been, you know, like, and even just one session with Matt, he's just reminding me, you can do what you want to do. You just have to set the goals and smash them. And that's always been my goal, to find the goals that I need to set and smash them. And he's starting to set me up with like some things to think about. And, you know, I'm really like ready for this. So there you go.
Right on. You keep mentioning all these projects.
Uh-huh.
So let me just, you're approaching George Lynch level number of projects.
Okay. Yeah, George has a lot of projects.
He does.
He's a huge inspiration to me, by the way. And that's one. Him and Foo Fighters' Dave Grohl are probably the two biggest influences on why I do so much stuff. You know, Marty Friedman was always like really good at like being involved in a project and making it help go forward, or just playing a solo on something but yeah, George Lynch, huge influence on me as far as like doing that kind of stuff. So,
all right, so you got, let me list them off: Black and Blue, The Loyal Order, State of Balance.
Inactive at the moment, but yes.
Okay. Couple of tribute bands. Am I allowed to name them?
Appetite for Deception, Jukebox Heroes. Appetite's a Guns N' Roses, and then Jukebox Heroes is a...
Yeah, I have a surprise for you, and I'm not stripping here, folks.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd mention Appetite for Deception.
Is this on camera? I want to see this. Oh my God, you have one of our shirts.
I have one of your shirts on.
That's amazing.
So this is the best damn Guns N' Roses tribute band I've seen. Check this out.
We've been doing this band for 14 years. Yes.
And I saw you at your 14-year anniversary show.
Yes.
In September 2019.
Yes.
So, yeah, and this right here is BC Slash. Brandon Cook Slash. Top hat, yeah. Black wig, everything.
I love playing Slash's guitar stuff. I mean, he's like, that song, we actually like, we learned a whole bunch of new stuff, like new transitions and stuff like that. Like we did, I Was Only Joking by Rod Stewart, which is an intro that they did for one of their tunes. I did this song called Ghost that was on Slash's 2010 solo album. We had a really great singer, Stephen McSwain. Thank you for coming out and doing that with us. We did a whole bunch of stuff to try to like make that show special. And that's one of the things about the Guns N' Roses band. With all the authenticity we try to keep in the band, it's never like we just go, okay, here's our set list. Here's all the hits that we do. Let's just stay and then we'll be happy and we'll make money and that's fine. Probably make less money that we do that. However, our singer, especially our singer, and our guitar player Michael, they're always trying to come up with ideas and watching videos and watching us do videos and always trying to improve like our look and stuff like that. It keeps it fresh. If I didn't have like that, I would have been bored already. I would have quit, and like, not only that, we've even gotten closer, like relationships go through ebbs and flows and stuff like that. But like last couple of years, me dealing with all my emotional stuff and trying to do that, these guys I love, they're like my family. I talk to them about the stuff I've been going through and like what I want and moving forward. And it's like, I want to have closer relationships with you guys. I want to be like, if we're a fucking family, we're not going to be a dysfunctional one. I want to fucking do this right. And I want to, I love you guys and I care about you, but also we got to be a good business. And so we started making better business decisions. And so like coming on our 14-year anniversary was like, now there's new ideas in the band. It's fresh again. And Mark just wrote us a note the other day. He's like, what are you guys seeing that you want to change? What do you want to do to make your look better? What do you want to do to make your pants better? What do you want to do? Do you need a new wig? Do you need a new hat? Do you need to do this? Do you need that? And we're just like, we're looking at that stuff, So anything that I can do, any band that I'm ever going to be a part of is going to be vital. If it doesn't have somebody like stirring the pot, if it's not me, it's somebody else in the band, I'm not going to do your project because it's got to be vital. It's got to be fucking on fire. People have to be just like really stimulated and excited about making music. Even if it's a really great gig and it doesn't, everybody's just kind of like, oh no, I'm going to be like getting bored really fast.
Yeah.
Because like one of the reasons I like working with Patrick Young, the bass player of Black and Blue, is because he's always like, yeah, but what are we going to do to be like set ourselves apart from the other bands on the cruise or whatever like that? I want to do this. He's always got an idea to help us move forward. And he even does that when we're in the Loyal Order too. It's like, those harmonies aren't really standing out, guys. What are we going to do to make that sound better? And it's like, shit, I don't know. What are we going to do? And then it makes you think and pushes you to that level. Because like the 1%, the top 2%, top 5% of bands in the world, the other 95% or 97% of all bands that fail,
yep,
they didn't think of enough things to keep people fresh. They didn't push their ideas to the maximum of making them compelling. And I'm not saying all my ideas are compelling or whatever, but that's what I want. I want to like push myself to think of ideas that are more compelling, that make people want to look and make people want to watch. And with more bands out there in the available broadband of the world and the bottleneck of the music industry right now, you've either got to be just like have a ton of money at your disposal, or you've got to have ideas that blow everybody away. And it's not going to, your sweep arpeggio is not going to be cool enough to make me look at you second time. It's got to be like beyond that. And the music industry has always been that way. It's always been that way. The bands that made the most money were the ones that were the most compelling. It was always that way.
Sure. Motley Crue with the satanic symbols. They did that. They got attention.
Yeah.
They were good musicians, but there were other good musicians of their time.
Yeah.
But they're the ones with the gimmick.
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. Everybody's glam. Everybody's wearing makeup. And then there's these guys that come out in flannel and jeans, and they're just like, to hell with the glam.
Yeah.
And in 1987, they show up and kick everybody's ass.
And everyone was like, how did that work?
Yeah.
So everybody, like the next record of everybody that came out that year, like I remember when Poisons opened up and say, they were like the most glam they'd ever been. And then the next record,
yep,
everybody's got flannels and everyone, and then the record industry went.
And Striper. They go from the yellow and black spandex, suddenly they're in leather.
And jeans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was In God We Trust. They still had hairspray and stuff in their hair, but like they definitely had changed. Skid Row changed a lot. Sebastian Bach's look on the first record was I think they were actually one of the reactions to the glam change, but they still had more glam. And then the second record came out, and everyone was they looked like Pantera, or Metallica or something, and it was like, whoa, these guys are really taking
it. They sounded a lot heavier.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Slave for the Grind.
I love that album.
Yeah.
I remember this summer that we drove around all summer listening to Slave to the Grind. It was so brutal. The kick drum sound on that was just like huge. It was unbelievable. Like the bass on Monkey Business.
Yeah.
Just so brutal. And then Sebastian singing, like, no one's ever been able to like replicate his level of singing in that era. He's just so out of his mind and like intense.
That may be why everybody keeps bugging Skid Row to get back together with him.
Yeah.
But I read an article yesterday. Rachel Boland's like, no, please stop asking. We're never getting back together with the guy.
That's unfortunate. I mean, like, like whatever the problem is, I won't speculate just because I don't know.
I know a little bit about it, but it's really none of my business. And it's a band.
Yeah.
If you don't, like you were saying, if you don't gel, if you don't work well together, don't play together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a tough thing for fans to realize. Well, why aren't you playing with so and so? Just it didn't. How like your parents got divorced, right? Yeah. Well, like dad wanted more sex and mom wanted to be Christian or whatever. Dad wanted anal. No.
And there's the FCC censors.
Sorry.
No.
But seriously, like, something about Sebastian and those other four guys didn't work. Just like creating that chemistry and like pushing things to that level, I guess I'm grateful for like not being, 100% normal and having a regular job and stuff like that, because that's a certain kind of thinking, and I've never been able to do that. I've always been good at this other kind of creative thinking that, you have to do to be in the music industry. And, how we don't have any money. How are we going to get that on our record? Well, I guess we got to find some of the money to invest in this, or I guess I got to do it myself, or I guess I got to like buy this thing that I can't afford and somehow figure out how to replicate it, or I guess I got to use my guitar and change the pickups because I got that one pickup and that'll sound more like this, or just whatever you think of to do it. Well, I got a Marshall, but it doesn't sound like a Mesa Boogie. Well, so-and-so's got a Mesa. Why don't you just borrow it? You have to figure out these little details that help you get to that thing that you're after all the time. And like I said, not all my ideas are like that compelling or like so amazing, but I played because I decided that I was going to harass Marty Friedman to get an audition with him for a year. He gave me an audition. And then that led me to playing with Chris Caffrey. And I got to play with Jeff Plate, and several members of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And Alex Skolnick from Testament's band opened for my band that night. And I got to play in Times Square. All because I harassed Al Petrelli to give me a lesson. And then at the end of the lesson with Al Petrelli, he said, hey, if you need help with anything, just let me know. So I bugged him about getting an audition with Marty. And he was just like, well, just tell him tell Marty you know me. And that's got me in the door. And then this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing. And I just had to I didn't have anybody helping me out. I had to figure out who I needed to help me out and figure it out on my own. No one gave me any money. I taught 60 guitar lessons a week at the beginning of my music career to try to get enough money to make myself a 5-song demo. And then that was just a demo. I thought it was going to be like the album of the year. And they're like, yeah, nice demo. And okay, now I got to really fight, and then I got fired from the Chris Caffrey band because I didn't have my life in the right kind of order to be a touring band. So then I made another demo and made that another level higher and figured out how to pay for it. Like my mom actually loaned me some money for that one, which was really cool. And I don't know, man, just like it got me to this place where now here I am, 44 years old, and I've done quite a bunch of cool shit. And I feel really for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm at peer level with all these great artists, and I want to keep doing it more. I'm not going to stop. I'm ready to fucking rock.
So normally at this point, I'd ask my guests where listeners can find out more about them, where they can hear your music, where they can find out where you're playing live. But you've got so many different projects. We'd be here another 20 minutes just listing all of them.
Sure.
So I'm going to put all of those in the show notes on pariahrocks.com. That's PARIAHROCKS.com.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put links to Black and Blue and the Loyal Order and everything else we talked about. The Facebook fan pages, the official websites, and even a few videos that I dug up and that Brandon's going to send me. But let's plug your upcoming live shows. What's coming up? Where can people see you? I know Black and Blue is really a big part of a lot of annual festivals.
Black and Blue is on the Monsters of Rock cruise coming up in February. Appetite for Deception has a live show at the Aladdin Theater. I believe it's on January 11th.
And that's in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, and if it's not that day, it's that weekend. I'm going to be at the NAMM show playing with Delana. I believe we're on the main stage at the NAMM show, and we're also at the Sennheiser booth. I'm not sure the dates on those, but I'll get them out to Pariah so that he has those on the show notes. I'm doing a Foreigner tribute show at the Ponderosa. Check out the Ponderosa calendar, and I'll get the date to Pariah, and that's opening for Steel Horse Bon Jovi tribute.
And if I can interrupt, I've seen Jukebox Heroes play. No offense to Mick Jones, Jeff Pilson, or Kelly Hansen, but seeing Jukebox Hero, they play live. They play Foreigner songs live every bit as good as Foreigner does. That's a good compliment because I've seen that band and they're really, really good. The new Foreigner, the current live Foreigner lineup. I saw that band and I was just like, we have to sound like that. And you know, those guys all have a really high level of musicianship that play in that group. I don't know. I just kind of started feeling stuff where I was just like, we have to push higher, and we really started going after it. It wasn't really that big a deal. I just had to say something, and once I said, you know, we really started doing some stuff that the real Foreigner actually does. We tune all our songs down a half step. It's easier on the vocalists, and we're singing more in tune than we ever have. We already had really good vocals. It just, I wanted to push it to another level, and they all were like, fuck yeah, let's do it. You know, it wasn't like, you know, they didn't want to or something. It was just like, I heard something that I was really wanting to do. And so by the time you heard us, that was when we'd already been like kind of rebuilding and reinvesting ourselves and making the project really good. So that band is like reinvigorated and just really on fire. We did a show last weekend and it was fucking awesome. So like that's the show lineup for me right now. I'm in the off season, so I'm actually preparing for a bunch of stuff coming up, you know, like doing the recordings for the Loyal Order. You know, I'm starting to work on trying to get some YouTube videos up on my YouTube channel, and I've been practicing a lot more guitar to try to put out some more like instructional type videos, maybe even write a series of instructional videos I can put on iTunes. And I'm starting to just really reinvest myself in doing music industry stuff. I'm teaching lessons, so if anybody wants to have like guitar lessons with me, if you find out through Pariah, I'll give you a discount, and you want to start, you know, 10% discount off my regular rate. Wow, that's really generous. Thank you.
And we'll, you know, get you in and teach you some really good things about guitar. I teach, probably the biggest part about what I teach is like how to get moving forward. So many people, they learn the music theory, they learn the licks, they learn the notes, and, you know, they just don't know what to do with it all. And I spend a lot of what I do like coaching people on how to move forward. You know, like I could set it up and put you in a room and be like, okay, you're in a, you're in a band with a bunch of kids that kind of know how to play. But like what some of the really more advanced students or advancing students, people with high-minded, they have a lot of energy, but no place to put it. And one of the things that I've been able to do with students who really, really want it is get them on stage and get them making records. And encourage them to do things that are scary. And, you know, that's how I've gotten this far. And I'm not really all that far, but I'm in the game, and that's what I want to be. So that's what I teach as a guitar teacher. It's like, I'll teach you the theory. I'll teach you your favorite songs. I'll teach you how to write. I'll teach you to, you know, all the fundamentals of all that stuff. And then take it to the next level and get yourself out there. You know, sure, do School of Rock. Go play with some people. That's important. But what happens when that's done? And what's happened when that thing that's done is done? And then after that, okay, moving forward. Now, what happens when your drummer doesn't want to rehearse because he wants to watch the Cleveland Browns game? And he holds up your band, and it's the only rehearsal you have before the gig.
Ugh.
That's the kinds of things I help to advise people on, and like do it in a way that like is moving forward with the band and not inhibiting you. I've I've been through it all, you know, and you know what happens when the gig of your dreams falls through. You have to learn how to pick up the pieces and move forward, stand back up, dust yourself off, and do that. And the emotional support component and like that kind of stuff to the music industry is really tough. And you know, that's the kind of thing you get in a lesson with me. Not only the basics and the fundamentals and the technical intricacies, but also like direction. So anyway,
that's very much needed.
Yeah,
because you can learn almost anywhere, you know, chords and picking up songs, but learning what to do with it, that's the important stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Learning that, you know, your perception of things isn't always the right perception. You could be playing the exact notes and everything that they played on the record, but like somehow you're not fitting in with the band. And it's you. It's not the band. You think the band's sucking because they're not doing what you, and it's you. Sorry, you have to flex. You have to fit in, you know. Well, the band's for other people. Yeah, they outnumber you. So you have to do something, otherwise you're the sore thumb. Even if you're right, you're still the sore thumb. If they don't all four see that you're right, you have to do something. You either leave or you have to conform. So those are kinds of things that I end up talking about a lot in lessons.
Well, and that's something that people can't get from just their neighborhood music teacher, from the average music schools. Learning from a real rock star who's been there, who's had to flex to be part of a band.
Yeah, my natural style was not like Tommy Thayer from Black and Blue, but now that I play in Black and Blue, I've learned how to like morph my playing so that it sounds like Black and Blue. You know, I mean, when I first got in there, it sounded like Brandon Cook playing in Black and Blue, but now Black and Blue sounds more like Black and Blue they have in 30 years. You know, just because Tommy Thayer wasn't there. You know, and I love Tommy Thayer's playing. It's like now with Tommy Thayer and Kiss, it sounds more like Ace than Ace does. You know, because he's a really, really insane player. And he still sounds like Tommy Thayer to me, because I know what Tommy Thayer sounds like. I know it very intimately. But when I hear him play Ace stuff, it's like, well, that's kind of what Ace wanted it to sound like. You know, really clean and professional sounding and stuff like that. But it also has that rock and roll swagger, because if you take away all the glitz and the glamour, right now, Kiss is a badass rock and roll band.
Yeah.
You know, they sound really good. I know Paul Stanley supposedly has like stuff on his voice.
Careful, if you use the word Kiss too many times, I owe Gene Simmons money.
Okay. That band, it starts with a K.
Kidding.
No, but no, he I was listening. I closed my eyes and just listened to the band, and you can hear where he gets a little bit of help or whatever. I don't care. He's 70 years old. He gets a little help. You can't sing that high when you're 70.
No.
Or 68 or whatever, how old he is. That's still old. My mom's 68 years old. She can't do the things she used to do. She's retired. She doesn't work anymore. Paul Stanley hasn't retired yet. He's still out there shaking his tail and, you know, jumping up and down and playing guitar. And people give him shit because he doesn't sing all the high notes. It's like, dude, if you were 67 years old, I can guarantee you wouldn't be able to do that. So I give the guy a break. Anyway, bar all that stuff, Kiss is still a fucking amazing rock and roll band. And if they had Peter and Ace, I don't know that they'd be able to do that still. You know, I love Pete. I love Ace Frehley's guitar playing. I've seen his band. But the reason Ace can do what he does, Ace has a badass band backing him up. I mean, some guys that I know, you know, personally, and I really admire greatly. But if Gene and Paul didn't have the strength of younger guys like Tommy and Eric, it wouldn't work, you know. So now Ace has a young, strong band backing him up, and that helps make Ace's thing work. You got to have those fiery players in there to, like, you know, if you're not able to do it anymore, you got to have somebody to help bolster you. So, I mean, to me, this is the best of both worlds, you know. Like, if Kiss was together in their original form, it wouldn't be as good, in my opinion. It might be, but I don't think it would be. Prove me wrong. Come on, Ace.
Brendan Cook, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the Hard, Heavy, and Hair show.
No problem.
I would love to have you back. Talk about more Black and Blue stuff. We'll talk about this other project. Talk about maybe something else that you might have coming up. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh, dude, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed doing this thing with you. This is really, really fucking cool.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. And once again, hit the show notes for this Hard, Heavy, and Hair show on pariahrocks.com. I'll link to every project Brandon and I talked about, including Brandon Cook Music, where you can get lessons from a real rock star.